Welcome back to another reading of a Grimm Brothers fairy tale. Today I have for you Rapunzel from this awesome collection. So I hope you enjoy it, and it'll be fun seeing how it compares to Rapunzel in the Tangled movie, which I don't know if y'all have watched it, but I love it, and I definitely made me appreciate my frying pan more. So let's get into it. Once upon a time, there was a husband and wife who for quite some time had been wishing in vain for a child. Finally, the dear Lord gave the wife a sign of hope that their wish would be fulfilled. Now, in the back of their house, the couple had a small window that overlooked a splendid garden filled with the most beautiful flowers and herbs. The garden, however, was surrounded by a high wall, and nobody dared enter it because it belonged to a sorceress who was very powerful and feared by all. One day, when the wife was standing at the window and looking down into the garden, she noticed a bed of the finest Rapunzel lettuce. The lettuce looked so fresh and green that her mouth watered, and she had a great craving to eat some. Day by day, this craving increased, and since she knew she could not get any, she began to waste away and look pale and miserable. Not that pale is a bad thing. Her husband became alarmed and asked, "What's wrong with you, dear wife?" I shall certainly die if I don't get any of that Rapunzel from the garden behind our house." Her husband, who loved her, thought, "Before I let my wife die, I'll do anything I must to make sure she gets some Rapunzel." That day at dusk, he climbed over the wall into the garden of the sorceress, hastily grabbed a handful of Rapunzel, and brought them to his wife. Immediately she made them into a salad and ate it with great zest. But the Rapunzel tasted so good to her, so very good, that her desire for them was 3 times greater by the next day. If she was to have any peace, her husband knew he had to climb into the garden once more. So at dusk he scaled the wall again, and just as he landed on the other side, he was given a tremendous scare, for he stood face to face with the sorceress. "How dare you climb into my garden and steal my Rapunzel like a thief? You'll pay for this." "Oh, please let mercy prevail over justice. I did this only because I was in a predicament. My wife noticed your Rapunzel from our window, and she developed such a great craving for it that she would have died if I hadn't brought her some to eat." Upon hearing that, the anger of the sorceress subsided, and she said to him, "If it is truly as you say, then I shall permit you to take as many Rapunzel as you like, but only under one condition. When your wife gives birth, I must have the child. You needn't fear about the child's well-being, for I shall take care of it like a mother." In his fear, the man agreed to everything, and when his wife had the baby, the sorceress appeared at once. She gave the child the name Rapunzel and took her away. Rapunzel grew to be the most beautiful child under the sun, but when she was 12 years old, the sorceress locked her in a tower that was in a forest. It had neither door nor stairs, only a little window high above. Whenever the sorceress wanted to get in, she would stand below and call out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair for me." Rapunzel's hair was long and radiant, as fine as spun gold. Every time she heard the voice of the sorceress, she unpinned her braids and wound them around a hook on the window. Then she let her hair drop 20 yards, and the sorceress would climb up on it. That was one buff sorceress. A few years later, a king's son happened to be riding through the forest and passed by the tower. Suddenly, he heard a song so lovely that he stopped to listen. It was Rapunzel, who passed the time in her solitude by letting her sweet voice resound in the forest. The prince wanted to climb up to her, and he looked for a door but could not find one, so he rode home. However, the song had touched his heart so deeply that he rode out into the forest every day and listened. One time, as he was standing behind a tree, he saw the sorceress approach and heard her call out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Then Rapunzel let down her braids, and the sorceress climbed up to her. "If that's the ladder one needs to get up there, I'm also going to try my luck," the prince declared. The next day, as it began to get dark, he went to the tower and called out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." All at once, the hair dropped down, and the prince climbed up. When he entered the tower, Rapunzel was at first terribly afraid, for she had never laid eyes on a man before. However, the prince began to talk to her in a friendly way and told her that her song had touched his heart so deeply that he had not been able to rest until he had seen her. Rapunzel then lost her fear, and when he asked whether she would have him for her husband, she saw that he was young and handsome. She thought, he'll certainly love me better than old Mother Gothel. So she said yes and placed her hand in his. I want to go with you very much, but I don't know how I can get down. Every time you come, you must bring a skein of silk with you, and I'll weave it into a ladder. When it's finished, then I'll climb down, and you can take me away on your horse. They agreed that until then he would come to her every evening, for the old woman came during the day. Meanwhile, the sorceress did not notice anything until one day Rapunzel blurted out, Mother Gothel, how is it that you're much heavier than the prince? When I pull him up, he's here in a second. Ah, you godless child, exclaimed the sorceress. What's this I hear? I thought I made sure you had no contact with the outside world, but you deceived me. In her fury, she seized Rapunzel's beautiful hair, wrapped it around her left hand several times, grabbed a pair of scissors with her right hand, and snip, snap, the hair was cut off, and the beautiful braids lay on the ground. Then the cruel sorceress took Rapunzel to a desolate land where she had to live in great misery and grief. On the same day that she had banished Rapunzel, the sorceress fastened the braids that she had cut off to the hook on the window, and that evening, when the prince came out and called, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair, she let the hair down. The prince climbed up, but instead of finding his dearest Rapunzel at top, he found the sorceress, who gave him vicious and angry looks. Aha, she claimed with contempt, you want to fetch your darling wife, but the beautiful bird is no longer sitting in the nest, and she won't be singing any more. The cat has got her, and it will also scratch out your eyes. Rapunzel is lost to you, and you will never see her again. The prince was beside himself with grief, and in his despair he jumped off the tower. He escaped with his life, but the thorns he fell into pierced his eyes, so he became blind. Now he strayed about in the forest, ate nothing but roots and berries, did nothing but mourn and weep about the loss of his dearest wife. Thus he wandered for many years in misery. Eventually he made his way to the desolate land where Rapunzel was leading a wretched existence with the twins, a boy and a girl, to whom she had given birth. Ooh, sneaky, sneaky little freaky girl. When he heard a voice that he thought sounded familiar, he went straight toward it, and when he reached her, Rapunzel recognized him. She embraced him and wept, and as two of her tears dropped on his eyes, they became clear, and he could see again. Then he escorted her back to his kingdom, where he was received with joy, and they lived happily and contentedly for a long time thereafter. Well, that's definitely nothing like the movie. It's much darker, and she was a lot quicker to get married here. So, I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely learned something. I did not know that, our princess was named after lettuce. Good thing it's a pretty name, because that's kind of a crappy thing to be named after. And unless you're a bunny, then that's just delicious. So, I hope you enjoyed it, despite my little tongue twists, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!